Hello everyone and welcome to Moonlight Jewel. My name is Elisa and today's video is a super special doll collab again. Alex and Barb from Enchanterium collaborated together with me to bring you guys some KDA dolls. I decided to make Seraphine, a new released League of Legends champion. She was introduced in the new KDA music video More after being teased for months on her very own social media account. I loved her KDA look so much and really wanted to make her. Please make sure to check out Enchanterium's video too. They made Akali and their doll is so cool. Also, quick reminder, the 300k contest is still going on. You can find the details and the link in the description box below. You can send me your own space-themed doll design, and once we hit 300k, I will pick my favorite one, make it as a doll and send it to the winner. And also a quick reminder that the Beam pre-order is coming up on December 5th at 9 PM CET. So if you want to grab one of the little kitties, make sure to mark it in your calendar. You can find all the information and links in the description box below. Alright, but enough of the talking, let's get started. I will use this Goldilocks Ever After High doll for Seraphine because I think her cute and soft look will fit Seraphine perfectly. I first get rid of her factory face-up with pure acetone and then cut off all of her hair. Now I just need to remove all the stubbles from the inside of the head and the doll is prepared. Okay, let's start with the outfit this time. For the upper part of her clothes, I lay out white chiffon and iridescent organza, cut out the pattern pieces and sealed them with fabric glue. The first thing I'm doing is gluing around the seam allowance of the sleeves so it looks nice and clean. I cut little snaps into the seam allowance and glue it around with fabric glue. Looks nice and clean. Then I cut out a half circle from white chiffon and cleaned up the fabric edges with fray check before pinning it onto the sleeve like this. I sewed it in place and once finished up it will look just like Seraphine's shoulder piece. Now I'm just pinning and sewing the sleeve into the armhole. I usually do that by hand for more control of what I'm actually sewing. Next thing I'm doing is cleaning up the other armhole just like I did with the sleeve seam allowance. And then I just need to close both side seams here and here. I turn it inside out and the top part is already done. I did not add a closure and didn't clean up the bottom seam because I will be sewing the doll into the outfit later on. Next thing I was going to make was the lower iridescent part of the top piece. I first made a papier-mâché base and drew on the shape before cutting it out. I then traced all the single pattern pieces I would need onto some tape and started gluing them onto the base. I ironed some iridescent vinyl on fabric and cut the pattern pieces out to glue them on. Here half of the piece was done already and I was actually not sure about it, but hey, let's see how it looks all done. And yeah, I hate it. Oh no. It just wasn't symmetrical enough and did not quite lay nice and flat on the body. I then started sewing it too with the same bad results. And this was when the odyssey of trial and many errors started. Okay, after rethinking my technique, I asked PIXIE if she could 3D sculpt the dress part with the seams for me. I then printed it and could make perfectly fitting little pattern pieces. I cut them out from fairy film, which I layered with double-faced tape. I then started gluing them on, and this time it seems to finally have worked. And it looks so cool already. Here I'm adding the shoulder straps to the dress with some glue. While that was drying, I cut out the pieces for the bracelet from thick paper and glued them onto fairy film as well. Then I just cut them out, rolled them together and secured them with some clear tape. Oh, and I almost forgot to put a magnet onto Seraphine's back for the floating crystals. I used some epoxy clay to sculpt it on and let it cure before sewing her into the top piece of the dress. I then put the crystal part onto her as well to glue the choker in place, which I made of a layered paper fairy film too. I pressed it on firmly and let it dry completely. And that's how the crystal dress part looks all done. I also printed the back part and glued fairy film onto it as well. This way I can glue the doll into the dress later on like this. Okay, time for the skirt. For this I used my pleated skirt pattern from my sewing book volume 1 and just made it a little longer than the original. I first sew on the back pieces onto the front piece of the skirt and iron the seam allowances flat. Then I fold the bottom seam allowance inwards and hem it as well. Now it's time for the pleats. I fold them according to the pattern pieces and secure them with a lot of pinning needles. This looks neat and clean. I then secure them with my sewing machine and iron them in shape. For the side piece of her dress, I used the same iridescent organza that I used for the upper dress part and just cut out a long half circle that I folded into pleats. I also fray checked all edges so the fabric is secure from fraying. Then I place it on top of the skirt and also hem it in place. Looks great! Now I take the waistband of the skirt and first glue around the upper seam allowance with my Uhu stick because it's stark und schnell. After that I line up the triangles of the waistband and the skirt and sew them together, finished sides in. I also found this old bracelet that I will be using for Seraphine's chains. I just place it on the skirt and sew it in place by hand. I use plenty of stitches to make sure it won't come apart. Now I just needed to add a snap button and the skirt is done. I love it so much. I however decided to shorten the iridescent part later on a little because it turned out to be a little too long in the front. Time for the boots! I printed these shoe bases Blue Pixie made for me. You can also make them with epoxy clay, but 3D printing saved me some time here. I use a scrap Monster High doll for making the shoe tips here. I just wrapped the leg in cling film and then taped the shoe base onto the feet with masking tape. I then take some air drying foam clay to sculpt the shoe tips. This clay is great because it stays a little elastic even when it's dry, even though it's not so easy to handle because it's a bit gooey. Once it's dry, I can just free the leg and remove the cling film easily from the shoe base. By the way, I'm currently writing a book on doll shoemaking, including patterns and 3D files for shoe bases, so stay tuned for that. Time for the fabric part. I take some super stretchy jersey fabric, cut out the pattern piece and fold around the upper seam allowance first and secure it with a zigzag stitch. This way it will stay elastic. Then I fold it together and sew together the back seam. I turn it inside out and put it into the doll leg. Then I put on the shoe base on the foot and pull the fabric over the shoe base. With my trusty Uhu all-purpose glue, I carefully glue the fabric onto the shoe base. Once it's dry, I can cut off the excess fabric. Time to decorate the boots. I use black satin ribbon and glue them around the boots in a crossover pattern. This was a bit tricky, but it looked very good in the end. For the thigh decoration, I glued a paper strap onto fairy film again and glued around the edges for a clean finish. When it was all nice and cleaned up, I just needed to glue it on the top part of the boot. Looks great! For the shoe soles, I made a pattern, cut it out of paper and glued it onto fairy film as well. Then I cut it out and just glue it around the shoe sole. And yeah, the shoes are done and they look so nice and clean. To cover the back seam, I just glued on another stripe of fairy film over the seam. Time to prepare some of Seraphine's hair. I already rooted the hairline and will just fill up the rest of her hair with some yarn wefts that I made. This way her hair won't be too full and heavy and I can just glue her ponytail on later. This is actually the second try on her hair because making a ponytail wig first kind of failed. When I filled the head with yarn hair, I put it into a ponytail and clipped her bangs to it too before wrapping her hair into some kitchen paper towels to start the face up. And yeah, time for the face up. I sprayed her with MSC and start by dusting on some micro glitters to her face for some glowy shimmers first. I then use some soft pastels to blush her cheeks and lips with some sweet shades of pink. I also like to contour the nose a little with pastels. I sprayed her again and started to sketch out the eye shape. I wanted to give her the soft, sweet look that Seraphine has. I always start by sketching out the eyes with lighter shades first, before darkening them step by step. Making the second eye match is always one of the most difficult parts, but with patience it will become perfect. After I sketched out the eyes, I start giving her iris some color. I blend in different shades of blue and also start using some black. Blending in the colors really gives the face up some extra depth and makes it look really pretty. Time for some lashes. I already sketched out a layer and darkened them here with some black. I love giving my dolls lashes all the way around the upper lid because it makes them look so soft. Before I moved on to the other eye, I also give her some eyebrows. I dust on some teal pastel chalk dust and then use my teal pencils and an eraser to shape the eyebrows. Just like with the irises, I'm blending the colors into each other for a soft transition. Now it's time for some paint. I first use white gouache paint to paint the sclerae of her eyes super white. In case you mess up a little here, it's no problem because you can easily correct mistakes with an X-Acto knife or water. To give her iris some more color, I also go in with blue and white gouache paint to make them pop even more. Blending paint takes a bit patience, but it works very nice with gouache paints. And of course her little cheek star can't be missing. I also like to give the eyebrows some white hairs too, because it looks really cute. I added some eye highlights off camera and now just need to gloss her lips with Liquitex High Gloss Varnish. I usually add 3 layers of varnish for some extra sheen. And yeah, face up is done! Time for a final hairstyling. I put her head on a stick. Wow, that sounds wrong out of context. Anyways, I made some wefts from the teal monofiber hair that I had and start gluing them around the ponytail with all-purpose glue. For some extra volume, I take some of the excess from the yarn wefts and glue it on top of the ponytail. Then I added more and more wefts until the ponytail had the perfect shape. Here I already shortened her bangs a little and used got2b hairspray to hold it in shape. And then I used the stripe of iridescent leftovers as a hairband to cover up the wefts. I glue it around with Uhu glue. For the gradient in her hair, I will use Rit Dye More for synthetic fibers in pink. I heated up some water to 200 degrees Fahrenheit and poured in some of the dye. Then I dip dyed the ponytail of Seraphine until the desired result. Since her hair is teal, the pink turned into a nice purple, which is the perfect color for her gradient. Now she just needs the little crystal on her hair, and her hair is done! Time for the floating crystals. I 3D printed the shapes and drilled some holes into them with my Dremel to attach some pinning needles to them. Then I cut out little triangles from self-adhesive iridescent vinyl and cover the whole crystal with it. I then cut off the heads of the needles and placed them onto silicone paper. I put some resin onto the connecting parts and cure it under the UV lamp. After that I can release it from the paper and glue a magnet on one side and a little iridescent resin drop I made to the other side. This is also the second time I made those crystals, by the way. The first try just didn't look as nice. Blue Pixie also was so nice to make the microphone for Seraphine, which I just painted with some acrylic paints and powders. And I also made her some earrings by gluing some rhinestones to some pinning needles. And yeah, she's finally all done! How do you like her? I actually realized I forgot filming the making of her belt, but it's literally just a PU leather stripe with glued on tiny silver rhinestones. And here she is, finally all done. That custom doll was really a journey. I'm super happy how she turned out though, and I'm happy that I kept trying until I could make her the best way possible. Sometimes it's just all about trying and not giving up. How do you like her, and do you have a favorite League of Legends character? Please let me know in the comments below. And also a big shout out to all of my patrons. With your support, everything of this is possible, so big hugs to all of you. And if you like my videos and want more, please make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the little bell notification so you won't miss out on any future videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, see you in the next video, and have a beautiful creative day. Bye!